to beat Man City into the Premier League, you have to be perfect.
And I think there's a few other players in that Arsenal team that will be quite disappointed with their form. Thomas Partey.
Yeah, I think people will be screaming at their laptops or their phones right now and being like, look, they actually haven't gone deep in any other competitions as well.
Welcome back to Monday Vibes, one and all. As you can see, the coffees and the pastries are back out. We've swapped Henry Hill for Dougie Critchley, a huge upgrade in my opinion, but Zach Jalab remains. Boys, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I had an excellent weekend. Managed to rattle the entirety of the Newcastle fan base on Saturday Social.
You really did, honestly. We had Dougie on Saturday Social and
my mentions were on fire afterwards.
Yeah, and rightly so, man. Some of the stuff Dougie was coming out with. Dougie didn't have Eddie Howe in his top 5 managers of the season.
I had him 6th. It's just not a shocker. I mean,
that is
the Newcastle fans I was arguing with were like, oh, I'd have him 4th or 5th. And I was like, so 2 places or 1 place above me. Like, what are we really arguing for here? But yeah, I spent most of the morning arguing with Newcastle fans, but a good weekend otherwise.
And Sunderland?
And
1-2-1?
crucial win. Sets up that second leg very nicely tomorrow night.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second. That's why Dougie's restraining himself. Zach, how was your weekend?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not too bad. I had a good weekend. Yeah,
yours?
How's yours?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Should we crack on with our moments of the weekend then?
Yes.
Dougs, we may as well start with yours because, I mean, special Ahmad. Special goal.
It's a really good goal. I think one of the goals of the season. I don't think I'm just saying that as a Sunderland fan. Really great strike. And just love the curl on it, love the moment, love the reaction of the stadium. And we really needed it at that point because Luton were 1-0 up. They were dominating us, particularly physically as well. We've got so many injury issues at the moment. We actually didn't have a natural centre-back or left-back playing. We had a right-back playing at centre-back. We had a midfielder playing at centre-back. We had 2 right wingers as our full-backs. So we were really thin at the moment. But the courage they showed in that game, Ekwa in midfield, watch out for him. They're saying he's the new Yaya Toure. I'm not going that far just yet, but it's a strong start. And we go to Kenilworth Road tomorrow night with a 1-goal advantage, and I'm very nervous already.
It is a proper I am him goal. It's a proper
This is the moment.
Free
this is my
kick
time.
from that range. It's outrageous. The fact that you guys, obviously, hopefully, fingers crossed for you, Diggs, but could be back in the Premier League.
Well, it's a long way to go.
I would like to see it, I'm not going to lie.
It's nuts, having just got promoted from League One the season before.
And also, crucially, we scraped into the playoffs in League One last year and then managed to get it together in the playoffs in this championship season. I never saw coming. I thought we might be lower mid-table at a push, but this has just been magical.
What about you, Jalab?
Yeah,
good point for us.
Yeah, not that.
Massive
It was a great point, actually. Great point.
Yeah.
We 1-0 down. No, I've gone for Barcelona winning La Liga. Obviously, Spanish champions first time since 2019, and then we saw the hectic scenes of them doing Ring of Roses around the centre circle at their rival stadium, and then fans jumping onto the pitch and making them run off. It was a bit nuts, wasn't it? It was a bit.
Well, at your
crazy.
fiercest rivals, I don't know what you expect.
Yeah, it was very,
equally,
very odd.
the celebration was just a bit embarrassing.
I think I understand that. I've never
Ring of Roses.
I'm trying to think if I've seen another football team just do Ring of Roses, or have I not noticed it before?
It was quite juvenile.
It was really odd.
Xavi after the game say that I didn't think we should have been doing it. And
well, Xavi walked down the tunnel.
He walked straight down the tunnel, didn't he? Didn't get involved. Then afterwards, he was like, we should have been celebrating inside.
Yeah. Well, then did you see the celebrations inside? Joan Laporta walking in, like you know that meme of the American guy.
Yeah.
We walked in like honestly, it's not far from it.
Yeah,
it's really
exactly
not far from it.
And it reminded me. So a couple of weeks ago, Burnley, I think, had either their champion, as in winning the league, or their promotion secured at Blackburn. And Vincent Kompany, after they did a few olays in front of the Blackburn fans, was like, lads, we're not doing that. Which is what Xavi should have done, or someone at Barcelona should have done, because I just thought it was a bit...
Yeah.
Although I don't condone the fans running onto the pitch, I'm not totally surprised with the response.
Yeah. I'm going to go for Eberici Eze, who, under Roy Hodgson, what a guy. One of the nicest footballers I've ever had the pleasure of meeting and interviewing and playing football with. But equally, what's happened to him under Roy Hodgson? What's Hodgson been putting in his porridge, man? I think it's really 6 in, 7 or 8. And the goal, his second goal in particular, will be my moment of the weekend. The cross-field ball by Elise, the touch inside, the finish, top bins. I love Eze. I really do. I think he should be playing for a top 6 side.
Yeah.
No offence to Palace.
Works really hard as well.
In time, I think we just want to see a bit more consistency, don't we?
We do.
Next season, if you have this kind of end of the season for the whole season, it would be
100%.
incredible. I mean, scoring 6 and 7 for the whole season would be nuts, but we'll see.
I mean, he's got double figures for goals now.
Yeah,
so
it's good. It's really
sensational.
It's not
really
too bad.
good.
Right, let's crack on with the main talking points then. That's what everybody wants to hear us chat about, and there's no better place to start, is there, than the ending of the title race. We're going to talk about Arsenal Brighton, we're going to talk about Man City versus Everton, but the question from Henry is, should Arsenal and Mikel Arteta be criticised for bottling the league, or are City and Pep Guardiola just clear of the other 19 clubs?
I think there's a little bit of both. I'd mainly give a lot of credit to Man City because I actually thought in the first half of the season they were far off from their best, and they'd had a lot of turnover in the squad in the summer, losing Sterling, Jesus, Zinchenko. Laporte's now dropped out of the picture in terms of a key member of that first 11. Akanji's come in. Ake's been promoted to that first 11, or at least in the first 11 picture. They've integrated Haaland now really, really effectively. So there's been a lot of turnover at Man City. So for them to play this well and go on this 22-game unbeaten run on a season of transition, drawing only 4 in that time, it's really pretty special, and I know we see this from Man City in the past, so I give a lot of credit to Pep Guardiola for getting this team into this sort of shape at this sort of season, and they look odds on for a treble. I think that game against Real Madrid on Wednesday will be really, really tight, and I'm not saying that they are by any means into the final just yet, but they go into that as favourites, in my opinion, especially given Real Madrid's recent La Liga form. And then from an Arsenal perspective, they were 8 points clear with having played a game more. They'll be disappointed with how the end of the season's gone, but I just don't think it's been the disaster that other top 6 fans are enjoying this morning. Look, they put together an amazing season. I think they're 1 win short of the Invincibles. I think that's 26 wins they got there on 25. They've got their best points tally since 2007-8. It's pretty special stuff. And yes, they collapsed in key moments, particularly at home to West Ham. I thought they started really bad. Away at West Ham, sorry. Home to Southampton, starting really badly. And it's just been a bit of a shame that key injuries, their squad depth just not being as good, has come and bitten them at the wrong stage of the season. I mean, they started, I think, 8 of their first 11 started the first 13 games of the season. And it's very easy to point back now, and say, look, that's a key moment. You should have rotated more then. But it was a winning side. It was a winning side, and it's very difficult. They hadn't been in this league-leading position.
You've got to think about who the players are to rotate in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think also the biggest thing as well, like if we sat here at the beginning of the season, we went and I said to you guys, Arsenal are going to go toe-to-toe with Manchester City up until the last couple of games of the season. They're going to be leading the Premier League for the majority of that period. I've seen the stats as well where it says about Arsenal are going to, well, obviously if it does happen that Man City win the Premier League, they'll be the longest team to have sat at the top of the Premier League and not go on to win it ever in the history of the Premier League. However, if we sat there at the beginning of the season and if we could have said that Arsenal could have got top 4 and got back into the Champions League, that would have been a fantastic year for them. Would have been a developing season, especially if you've gone as well that say that Haaland's going to go break the goal scoring record. You would have thought that Manchester City would go on to do what they've done. It's not a surprise that a team that haven't maybe fought at this level before or maybe don't have the full depth as well to go as far as Manchester City can, are maybe struggling at this point in the season. I mean, I think the game that we saw yesterday against Brighton maybe just showed a team that kind of got to their edge, got to the end of their cycle before needing depth in certain positions. Like you look at Ben White yesterday, guy just looks shattered. Like he really, really does. And then when you're coming up against someone like Matoma who wants to drive at you and wants to run at you, that feels like your worst nightmare. And so I think when people were talking, especially when I saw online, I thought there was a lot of fans coming out and very much kind of reveling in the failure. Of course,
that's going to happen. When
you get that, you do get that. But I also think as well, like there is a general consensus of wow, you know what, Arsenal have been really impressive this season.
They have,
and it's just how it happens. I think to beat Man City into the Premier League, you have to be perfect.
Yeah, you do.
You have to be perfect, and you have to beat them as well.
Or they have some massive injuries. People point back at that Liverpool season, and Liverpool were unbelievable. I think they went 27 games unbeaten at the start of that year. Arsenal didn't put together quite as good a stretch, but also they lost Laporte. They lost Sane to injury. Like, I'm not saying it would have made a total difference because Liverpool were so good that year, but you need a lot of things to go your way, and it just hasn't at the key moments.
It feels like an Arsenal fan should go and talk to Liverpool fans right now and kind of have that therapy session of how tough is this? Because when you are going up against against Man City, and they're just bringing these quality players from who when they're playing games, they've got Kevin De Bruyne sitting on the bench for some of them because they're resting him for the Real Madrid game. They still look insane.
I do think though that Arsenal will be really disappointed with the last month and a half in particular. I think they've missed some big opportunities there, and I don't really want to level that just down to fitness, just down to sort of burnout, because some of these other players you look at across Europe are playing a substantial amount of games as well, and I know that. For instance, Bukayo Saka, we can point to Bukayo Saka having real struggles in his last sort of 7 games. I think it's just the one goal, isn't it? And people saying, he's run out of legs, he's burnt out. I don't know whether that's necessarily the case. I don't know whether I see burnout in Bukayo Saka. Yes, he's played over 4,000 minutes for club and country this season, which I think equates to about 42 full 90s. But other players his age, and we're talking about Bukayo Saka being maybe the best right winger in the world around the Christmas sort of period. Well, other sort of players around his age, you look at Vinicius Jr., you think of Erling Haaland's not that much older than Bukayo Saka, have played as many games.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen that drop-off in them. So I think Bukayo Saka, he might be a little bit disappointed with his form. And I think there's a few other players in that Arsenal team that will be really quite disappointed with their form. Thomas Partey. What's the excuse there?
That's a big one.
For the last 2 months of drop-off,
really
I think have been really, really bizarre. They've definitely been more porous without William Saliba. You look at the points per game, I think with him, they're on for like 93 points. Without him, in the 60 range. The goals conceded, I think 0.6, 0.7 with him in the team, 2 a game without him in the team.
But this is what it means when it comes down to depth, right? Like, okay, City lose a Laporte. City lost Laporte this season. In comes Diaz, in comes Stones, in comes Ake, who's been brilliant. For Arsenal, it was Kirill or Rob Holding
for that phase.
And that really did show the difference, I think. That really did show the difference. Like, we talk about how Saka over the past few games has fallen off, for sure. But Trossard over the past few games has maybe been increased. Or, say, Martinelli, so on and so forth. Like,
Martinelli's been fantastic. I'm not. It's not me having a go at Saka, but I think that, when we look at Arsenal, I don't think we can just say, it's because they've run out of legs. I think they've actually underperformed as individuals in certain big moments. I really do. I think that there have been times where they've had moments in games they could have capitalised on. I think of the form of Gabriel Jesus is a major injury problem throughout that sort of 2-3 month period either side of the World Cup, and that obviously didn't hurt them as much as they thought. But when he's come back, he's obviously scored goals, but hasn't quite been as impactful in moments as he was at the start of the season. And that's maybe hard because he was so fantastic at the start of the season. But I just feel like individually, Arsenal have struggled a little bit recently. I don't know. Yeah. And maybe that's just me watching the games, but I haven't been as impressed.
Yeah, I think people will be screaming at their laptops or their phones right now and being like, look, they actually haven't gone deep in any other competitions as well. They exited the Europa League fairly early in the last 16. They got beaten by, was it Brighton in the Carabao Cup, and I think the second round, beaten by Man City in the first round of the FA Cup, I believe, or maybe the second. Like, they haven't had that many games. I just think
the Europa League was a disaster for them. Because you look at the Sporting game,
it was all legs Prem.
The Sporting game is when Saliba and Tomiyasu got injured, and that's effectively cropped them for the rest of the season.
If they'd gone deep in the Europa League and say picked up the Europa League this season and finished second in the Premier League, I think everyone would be like, look, he's got to be up there for, this is one of Arsenal's best season in recent years, and it still is. But for Erik ten Hag, having that trophy in the cabinet really helps when the pressure comes on towards the end of the season.
Us three sat here probably a couple of weeks ago talking about this exact scenario, right? Of what if Arsenal don't win the Premier League?
It's still been an amazing
season.
United, it's still been an amazing season.
Possibly too. But I think at that time there, you said it right. It was about the wording. It's about the wording of how you say that question of who's had the more successful team or who's had the more successful season or who's had the better season.
Arsenal have had an incredible season. Like you said, I think we all sat pre-season. I had Arsenal finishing...
I think I had fifth.
I think I had them fourth in mine.
To finish second, and substantially second, let's be very, very clear, them and Man City are miles clear of any other team in the league. Like, they are easily the second best team in the country, definitely one of the best teams in Europe. I think they will really, really challenge teams in the Champions League next season from the continent. But the simple fact is that across sort of the first 29 games of the season, they dropped 17 points. They've dropped 12 points in their last 7 games. Yeah. Like, they have fallen apart at the end of the season.
But what you hope then is that they take this with experience. Like they would not have ever had this kind of scenario, right? Bukayo Saka's not been in this situation before.
But people will point to the fact that they crumbled at the back end of last season as well.
Sure. That is actually a very good point, to be fair. But to be going for
to a higher level now,
to be
obviously,
going for a Premier League compared to a top four
Yeah.
is very different. And so what you hope is that they learn from this. And also, like, if you sit here now and Arsenal have the possibility in the summer to improve massively.
Massively.
Like, they have become a number one destination to
Rice is coming
in London with a fan base that have reconnected with the club. They can offer serious wages. They've got Champions League football again. They're like, but for want of a better word, like a cool team right now to join. They're on an upward trend.
I
think a lot of young players around Europe will look at how they've developed the likes of Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, etc., and think, I want a bit of that. Exactly. I don't see them dropping off massively next year.
I think they're only going to get better. They're definitely going to get better. And that's not to say that they're going to finish on 94 points. But even if they finish on 90 points and it's more sustained across the course of the season and players are able to rotate in and out and they're able to go deeper in other competitions, it's just as much, if not more of a successful season. I think there's plenty of areas they can upgrade as well. You know, we've talked about Thomas Partey falling off. He's not young. The man they brought in to sort of battle with him, Jorginho, is not young. So they're definitely going to sign at least one, maybe two midfielders. You think Bukayo Saka, you know, even though I talked about the minutes earlier, it would be nice to have somebody who can kind of rotate in the Europa League or the Champions League for them next season. I think there's plenty of areas they can pick up players.
Well, if you do what you say, they hit 90 points, right, and they're going far in the Champions League, and if they get to this point again next season and they get to a point where, okay, it's the last 7 games, they've been here. They've been in that situation before. Like, how many teams have experienced failure and then the next season managed to learn from that and use that to
Well, Liverpool for a number of years,
Yeah, exactly. Should we just quickly, though, touch on Brighton?
Yeah, let's.
Because, I mean, just on the game yesterday, that was one of the most magnificent away performances of the season. They were a joy to watch from minute one.
Zerbi, man.
Imagine going to the Emirates and actually passing Arsenal off the park. Like, Arsenal are one of the best ball-controlling sides in Europe, and Brighton just went there and went, Jason Steele, Sunderland reject, sign 600k, I'll pass it to Levi Colwill, on loan from Chelsea. He'll split the like the passing out from the back. I don't know if you've seen the Pep Guardiola interview where he talks about them being the best side in Europe at building up from the back and how he's trying to replicate that system.
taking tips.
Taking tips from Zerbi. Rightly so, man.
But it's
insane.
It's all about, right, they want the, like, they're more than happy. And it's crazy that, like, Lewis Dunk is doing this, because you've seen interviews with Lewis Dunk come out before and been like, I did not know what I was doing here. And Zerbi has basically taught me, where basically they want their centre-backs to hold onto the ball to the last second to get the attackers to be pressing them.
Well, that wasn't even their starting set. That it was really not. It was a cobbled-together backline. You had Caicedo playing right back. There was no Adam Webster, so Colwill was filling in that central centre-back role. Obviously, Stupinan usually plays and Dunk usually plays, but the build-up play is a sight to behold.
It's beautiful. And also Lewis Dunk, like, credit to him, because, I mean, he was there in the Chris Hughton days, playing a completely different style of football. He's been at Brighton now his entire career, except for a brief loan spell, I think. Absolutely magnificent servant. I mean, got to be in the conversation for Team of the Year, probably outside of the...
And England squad.
Yeah, if you take away the Man City and Arsenal players, I think he'd definitely be in the conversation. And Jason Steele as well, just a quick word on him, like... You know, anyone that watched Sunderland Till I Die, you could see his confidence was at an all-time low. He was really, really bad for Sunderland in a horrendous season for us, where we did a double drop down to the Championship. And to be honest, I didn't think he had a career in him in the Championship, let alone in the Premier League. And now he looks like one of the best ball-playing goalkeepers in the entire division. Like, massive credit to him.
But then you think about, like, what Zerbi has done this season, right? When he's come in and it was Robert Sanchez. It was always Sanchez. Like, Sanchez was the guy. That's how, like, we were sitting here talking about how he could be the guy that one of the keepers that is looked at in the summer. Came in, wasn't happy. Well, obviously he started him for a little while, but not too long ago, a couple of months ago, wasn't happy with his attitude, dropped him and put Steele in, and has made Steele been playing fantastically well. Like,
and we've talked a lot about the absences they've lost over the last 18 months. We probably don't need to rehash that, but I think the timing of when they integrate these players into the first 11 is just perfect. There's no massive rush about it. Like in Ciso, last few weeks, brilliant. Great goal against Chelsea, popped up with another crucial goal yesterday. Slightly lucky in that Kivior gets stepped on in his Achilles. That is a really painful injury, but I think in that moment, man, you've got to stand up. You can't let a 5 foot whatever in Ciso is score a header from 3 yards out in your area.
I know it's pain.
It's not good.
You've got to just firm it.
I'll probably be doing the same, to be honest.
You've got to firm it in the moment.
It's a horrendous injury to have, studs down your Achilles, but come on, in that moment.
The age of that Brighton team that was out there dominating, like Colwill, how old is he? 20?
Yeah.
Max,
19, 20.
Caicedo, 21,
And
McAllister,
Ciso.
24, Billy Gilmore, 22, 21, 22, and Ciso, 20, 21, Evan Ferguson, 18. It's actually mad, the output he's getting, bringing on players like Buonanotte. Like, obviously after the game, he kind of was very open in his post-match interview. It was almost like, you see these sort of like Serie A interviews where they are just super open and not closed off.
But who's he kidding, right?
McAllister and Caicedo are going to leave.
Yeah, because who's he kidding? I think most Brighton fans know that, right? And I think actually, if you're a Brighton fan,
the honesty is great.
And the honesty is really nice. He's not lying to you, being like how many times have we seen managers before where they're like, no, I'm going to try all I can to keep him and all this, and obviously can't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's nice to see a manager kind of admit it, and then also that gives you the faith in someone like him who's shown you before. He's got the replacements there. He'll go and get replacements to go.
Well, they've already got them coming in, haven't they?
Well, yeah,
What do you make of
say?
Duke?
I'm a little bit sceptical about the quality of replacements, if I'm totally honest. I think particularly Moses Caicedo. I think McAllister is replaceable. I think £70 million for McAllister is quite a good sale from Brighton, especially given the money they spent on him originally, not very much at all. So, yeah, I think they've done well to get £70 million for McAllister, but James Milner, they got a lot of work out of Adam Lallana when it looked like he was past his best, but I just think James Milner for about 18 months or so has been quite far off it. I know he's got that versatility, can play as a sort of right mid, can play in central midfield, can play right back. And a great character to have around. But Mo Dahoud, I'm a little bit concerned about as well. Like, his injury record at Dortmund is atrocious. He's been completely superseded by Emre Can in that more defensive midfielder role. And, his career's slightly stagnated. But he does have a lot of talent in him, but
these are 2 free transfers.
Yeah.
And we're talking about £70 million for
exactly.
McAllister. We're talking about potentially £90 million for Moises Caicedo. I think the likelihood is they also dip into the market and they come out punchy.
So.
They've already jacked up £30 million for Joao Pedro.
Yeah.
I think they will go out there and make a statement. This is a club, and Tony Bloom is an owner. I think maybe the best owner in Europe, to be honest with you. I think he will have full planning in place that goes, okay, if we take 150 million, we want to go to the next level, which is probably Champions League football for them, because I think they are going to get Europa League this year. I think he's going to go out and go, okay, I'm going to make a statement here. I would not be surprised to see Brighton spend £50 million on a player this summer.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think,
that would be the hell of a statement. Like, I think Pat on Sunday Vibes mentioned it a couple of times now about Brighton. They need to make this decision on what club they want to be. Do they want to be one that kind of sits where they are now, or take that next level, or try and spend the money to go and do that? And I mean, spending 50 mil would be a hell of a
it would be crazy.
We've seen other clubs who have sold their best players over the years, which we'll come on to in due course in someone like Southampton, who were pushing for Champions League football at one stage 4 or 5 years ago. Unless it's very difficult to consistently get it right, Brighton have been amazing at it so far, and I think they've got a much better scouting network than Southampton did at that time, so I back them to get it right. But we've seen it with Leicester as well. It's very difficult to consistently sell your best players and maintain performance.
It is.
Yeah, I'm going to be really interested to see where Moises Caicedo ends up as well, because I think if Arsenal get Declan Rice, I don't see them going in for another £100 million midfielder in Moises Caicedo. I think that's pretty unlikely. I think they're more likely to go for a slightly more attacking player, maybe somebody like Mason Mount or some that sort of ilk. So where does he go, Caicedo? Because he's so versatile, he's so strong on the ball, he's so young, he's one of the most energetic players in the league. I absolutely love him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys were linked with him before he went to Brighton and had the option to buy him for like £5 million.
Could you see a world in which he plays in a midfield with Casemiro?
But you're in the position with Casemiro where, as good as he's been this year when fit and not suspended, that you do need to probably think about replacing him and Eriksen in the long term in the future. Now, I wouldn't drop Casemiro from the side altogether, and it would change the structure to have Caicedo playing alongside Casemiro, because he's probably not as good on the ball as Eriksen. But that's the sort of player that Man United should be looking at in the next few months. I think you guys also need a more defensive-minded midfielder.
Surely they can't
to free up Enzo Fernandez.
I mean, we spoke about again on Sunday Vibes about Chelsea needing and Chelsea needing a DM. I mean, I think nowadays players aren't necessarily as bothered by missing out on a year of European football if they're going to get these high wages and with the prospect of playing in European football the season after.
So young.
Surely you're not going to spend another £100 million on a
Look, it wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea have another summer of spending huge. Like if Chelsea spent 200 million in the summer, would it shock me? No, not at all.
True.
So yeah, and Chelsea, I think it's pretty known that Chelsea want a DM. They're still interested in the likes of Declan Rice. They were interested in Caicedo in the summer, in January as well. So it wouldn't shock me if they go out and spend 70 million.
Get him to United.
The club that makes most sense if they had any money and weren't obsessed with bringing back Messi is actually Barcelona as a Busquets replacement. He would be phenomenal for Barcelona.
But they are.
Is he a good enough passer though of the ball?
I don't think Barcelona are trying to play the tiki-taka style in the same way that they did. They're far more physical. They're far more direct. They're far more counter-attacking. And I just think, Busquets kept it simple for a lot of years as well. Caicedo is perfectly capable of doing that, can break up, play really well. I'm just worried that Barcelona are going to think, we'll play Kessie there next year, we'll play Frankie de Jong there next year, when actually they need to be the either sides.
He's actually a phenom, I think. Moises Caicedo. Before we move on, we should touch on Manchester City because we kind of breezed over them a little bit, didn't we? This was seen as a potential bogey game, wasn't it? Banana skin in the fixture list, going away to Everton, who are struggling for survival. Sean Dyche Everton, supposed to be really hard to play against, even though I think they've got as worse a defensive record under Dyche than they did in the same amount of games under Frank Lampard, which is not a great statistic. But they had just blown Brighton away. How the bloody hell did that happen?
That result looks weirder and
weirder.
weirder.
This is what I mean. The Premier League is such a weird place at times.
They're just something like City. They're just like 4 players dropped, and they're all massive players.
Benched,
they're in this period, aren't
rested,
they?
Really.
Is the
Rested
word.
is the word I'm looking for.
And fair play, they're playing Real Madrid. They're in this period though, City now. When we mentioned it before about how they just go on this period of winning, not just not losing. Just winning every single game.
Yeah.
And they have done. I don't think they've lost since February now.
February the 5th was their last
Gundogan
loss.
has gone into his Superman period where the first goal is ridiculous.
He's
off
ridiculous.
Of the thigh, flick into the back of the net. The free kick is outrageous.
Everton put up more XG than
the
them.
assist.
They did. I think City only put up 0.8. It wasn't their best performance. I actually
game
thought
state as
for
well,
the first half, I actually thought Everton were causing them some issues on the break. Calvert-Lewin having to go off at half time, being replaced by Neil Maupay, that really killed the game.
But was that an admission that the game's done?
Yeah, and they've got bigger games to come that they've got more chance in. But yeah, Gundogan, that goal is the sort of goal, even though the game, it's not the sort of game that we remembered in 2-3 years' time. That goal will be remembered in 2-3 years' time as, what an amazing moment.
He's the king of the running, Gundogan. Like, you think of the...
And king of stepping up foot when De Bruyne's not on the pitch.
One of the most clutch midfielders in Premier League history for me. I think you think back to that final day of the Premier League season last year when he scores was it the winner?
He scored 2 against Villa.
Yeah, just so clutch. Every single run in, he suddenly turns into Lionel Messi. I don't know how he does it. Even now, I think, 6 goal involvements in his last 3 games?
Yep.
Just suddenly stepped up to the plate where Man City needed him the most. I think it's going to be a massive loss if they lose him in the summer.
Surely they'll sort of contract out. Surely.
It's whether or not he wants to stay, isn't it? What more? If he wins the treble this season, what more can he achieve at Manchester City?
Yeah. But I'm just thinking
Barcelona. Every player, I don't care who you are, even how mid Barcelona have been, wants to end up at some stage in their career to be able to say, I played for Barcelona or Real Madrid.
Do you offer just winning the Champions League?
Yes, mate.
You're going to go to Barcelona and...
Of course. These players, look at Lewandowski. What more could he have... everybody would have said, just retire at Bayern Munich. These players on the CV,
they do
when they
speak
to the grandkids, want to say, I've played for these
clubs. Could do, I don't know. Maybe you're right. It is just the kind of...
It's the heritage.
The heritage of it.
This is the football heritage, honestly.
The thing about Gundogan is I feel like he could have played for any side in the world for the last 5 or 6 years. He's been he was Pep's first signing. It couldn't have gone better. As Joe said, crucial in every single run-in. I think it was 18-19 where De Bruyne missed a series of games, stepped up massively then. De Bruyne rested yesterday, and you need your big players to step up when your best players are absent, and he was unbelievable yesterday. Did think Pickford should have done better for the second goal, but that first one will be that goal that you kind of think of, unless there's more to come in the run-in of just City just being at their supreme best.
Yeah. Let's go to the other end of the table then, because we had our first official relegation, didn't we? Southampton. Mercked FC sent in a question for us on Twitter. If you want to get involved in next week's Monday Vibes, look out for my tweets on the Sunday night, usually asking for questions. He says, if Southampton's squad gets picked apart in the summer, what chance do they have of coming back up? So they are down officially now.
In terms of answering Mert's question, obviously it depends on which players go. There are quite a few players that I think a lot of Premier League clubs could have some fun with. Romeo Lavia, we spoke about a bunch throughout this season.
Kyle Walker-Peters.
James Ward-Prowse will definitely be staying in the Premier League. Kyle Walker-Peters mentioned as well afterwards that he'll probably be thinking about his future as well in the summer. Tino Livramento, to be honest, I wouldn't. He's been injured. He's not really played. So it wouldn't surprise me if he does stay with them for the Championship season.
I'd pick him up if I was Man United tomorrow. Livramento.
Has he really featured since he's been back from his injury?
It's worth the risk.
It's fair enough.
The fee will be so cheap.
It's fair enough. So cheap. But look, obviously, when you go down, you get that parachute payment, which is how you can go and spend a little bit to try and keep yourself topped up with good talent. Look, Southampton made a big decision in the summer to go with youth. They decided to try these players that had no Premier League experience. I think they signed one player with Premier League experience. Obviously, they got Bazunu in goal, who I think you feel like may have been the worst goalkeeper this season or second worst.
I think he's definitely up there with Danny Ward. Yeah, I feel unfortunate hammering a guy who's 20 or 21, but yeah, he was on loan at Portsmouth last year, has really struggled to adapt to the Premier League. I think he was causing Southampton issues long before they dropped him. They dropped him far too late, but I don't think that's the biggest issue at Southampton this year. To be fair, I think
not the youth.
The youth for sure. I just don't mean Bazunu.
Yeah,
I think the appointment of Nathan Jones. It's nice to take a gamble on a Championship manager. That backfired spectacularly. What was it? 1 win in 8 games. Will always be remembered as the guy that stopped Man City's potential quadruple, though, because he did knock them out of the Carabao Cup.
Yeah,
which is kind of mad to think about.
But even before that, I think the decision to sack Ralph Hasenhüttl now looks worse.
Although they were going down
because they were sloping and they sacked him, and it was like the world fell out from underneath him.
The decision to sack him is even more bonkers when you've got rid of all of his backroom staff at the beginning of the season and then not got rid of him.
Yeah.
And so, it's almost like if you're going to do that, then you might as well got rid of him then. And then in the period where you could have got a manager in for the long term of the rest of the season, during the World Cup, obviously they go and get Dave Jones.
Nathan Jones.
Sorry, Dave Jones, Sky presenter. Nathan Jones, and then go and sack him just a couple of months later.
They had to sack Nathan Jones. There was no choice.
I agree, but that's what I mean. Is that what is your thinking of giving him a month to work this team in the World Cup to then go and sack him 2 months later?
Yeah, I think basically this has been the culmination of quite a few seasons of poor planning from Southampton. Poor recruitment, poor planning. They've been on a general decline and slope over the last few seasons. We got to the summer where they signed one player. I think they signed 11 overall, but only one player had any Premier League experience, which was Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and his Premier League experience is pretty middling, given the fact that most
relegated with West Brom last time.
Yeah, relegated with West Brom. It's either come on loan or it's come in bit part minutes in that Arsenal side, and even he's a player who didn't really know his best role. He wanted to play centre back, then he's centre mid. Then he gets played at full back, and he's a bit all over the place. And the rest are all really gambles.
Yeah,
they gambles on exciting young talent, mainly from the Manchester City Youth Academy, because Joe Shields has come in from the Manchester City youth system.
Yeah, and then Joe Shields went to Chelsea.
I know. I mean, it's really falling apart.
When you add, as you mentioned there, behind the scenes as well, there then were supposed reports that the older players and the younger players there's a bit of a divide between them as well, and they kind of had a split.
That's not surprising either. I
think there's been a lot of. I think obviously when the backroom guys have kind of got involved, there's been a lot of changes and different ways. I think Southampton at one point were very much looking at a multi-club structure with the way they did their scouting. Then they went to very much of a one-club Southampton
Get one right first,
It's the new owners, isn't it?
Of doing things. It is a new
Sport
owners.
Republic,
Sport Republic, and they have very much been...
Who used to be in charge of Brentford, didn't they?
They did.
Moneyball systems.
Yeah, but they've gone down a route of trying the kind of risky youth tactic, because also as well, right, their idea if these players in the Championship are they have good quality in these players, and they are guys who could be really good next year in the Championship. They're just going to have to also.
I think they're actually going to be quite good in the Championship next year. I think
right.
It's going to be interesting to see whether or not they keep Ruben Selles. First and foremost, I've seen lots of reports. We even saw Fabrizio during the week, didn't we, saying that there's lots of interest in Selles from Spain. I'm not sure where that's come from, specifically who in La Liga is interested in him, because I think that squad contains talent enough to come straight back up out of the Championship. Even players who struggled badly in the Premier League, I said this on When You Talk, players like Adam Armstrong who has not worked in the Premier League, is a proven goal scorer in the Championship. 28 goals in his final season at Blackburn. Che Adams. These are players who have track records of goal scoring numbers in the Championship, combined with, let's say, they're able to maintain or retain 5 or so of the players they bought in this summer that are young and now have a season of football under their belt. I actually think they stand a very good chance to come straight back up Southampton.
There's also like Sekou shown like glimpses. I think he's been brilliant at points. It's just that when you sign so many young players with not that much of a core of experienced older players, because they got rid of their Ings and their Vestergaards over the last few years, that they've just really suffered through a lack of consistency, really. I think for years they've been very good in the bigger games. Like they've always, for some reason, been very good against Man City. Beat you guys earlier this year. I think they might have beaten you twice, or maybe at least...
beat us twice.
Maybe beat you twice, But it's against the sides around them. They've had a confused... that counter-attacking style under Ralph Hasenhüttl didn't really work when you were, playing teams that ceded you so much possession. But I think some of their big financial gambles this year as well. Joe Aribo was excellent for Rangers last year. Really solid for Rangers over the last 2-3 years. Great in their Europa League run. Did nothing. Paul Anuachu bringing in January.
Dear.
Horrendous. 11 Premier League appearances. I know it's difficult when you arrive in January.
18 mil though.
0 goals, 0 assists.
Some of their targets, though, they were after someone like Cody Gakpo originally. They were after the likes of
Rasmus Højlund, you said earlier.
Gonzalo Ramos. Like, these are guys who.
But are these realistic targets? This is like to me is like when you search on Football Manager without the filter turned on. Like. They're never signing Gonzalo Ramos from Benfica.
Gonzalo Ramos does not want to join.
But Gakpo was very close to joining. When
he was linked with Leeds and Everton and Southampton.
Which, look, if they get someone like him in, that could have been crazy. That could have been a very, very different season. And that's sometimes which is the fine margins in the Premier League.
Comes down to,
and unfortunately, they didn't get it through. And the guys that they have tried over the past couple of years, in Che Adams and Armstrong, haven't worked out. Yeah. Like, really, when they lost Danny Ings, we were like, they need a goal scorer. They need someone to put the ball back in the back of the net for them, and they've never found that since.
There were some huge results down there at the bottom end of the table, wasn't there, this weekend?
Yeah.
We should touch upon though one of the clubs that was involved in a relegation scrap this year, Chelsea Football Club.
Just about safe now.
Just about safe, but the news did break at the weekend, didn't it? That Mauricio Pochettino is the Chelsea gaffer, 3-year contract coming in.
At the time of recording, not confirmed by Chelsea themselves, but every report,
it's confirmed.
Athletic,
let's be real.
you name it.
Let's not mess about the recruitment team.
I think he's flying over this week. To sign
he's got his bowl of lemons ready in the in the Chelsea office.
For good energy.
Yeah, sucking up that negative energy because
Needs
he can see auras.
Needs
Pochettino.
it.
So we should just quickly talk about that because obviously at the weekend, more drop points, or is that a point gained against Forest for you? No. Where
honestly,
are you?
mate, at this point, I don't think anybody cares for Chelsea. Stop laughing, Diggy.
I don't think the players care either, mate. That's probably the biggest problem.
This is one of the biggest issues, honestly, and that's partially why I look at someone like Pochettino coming in and somebody who has, at Spurs anyway, and obviously it didn't quite work at PSG, but has that record of Spurs where he managed to get the players fighting for him. And I think right now at Chelsea, they need that. And that's not to say that I don't think the players are like not getting on. I do think they are getting on. I just think there might be a level of like it got to this season where one, confusion, because when you have 4 different managers, I'm counting Bruno, it's hard to kind of know which direction you're pulling in. 2, questions over your own personal future. Even for the guys that are part of the academy as well, when we're out there signing guys like Mudryk and stuff like that, what are you going to do in your position if they just sign a £100 million player? And so to get someone in who has this record at Spurs of basically getting people to fight for the badge and for him is going to be brilliant. I think for guys like Mudryk, who are keen trainers and want to learn and want to develop, Pochettino is the perfect person for him. When we first did the How to Fix Chelsea, I think I went in the end with Nagelsmann, because I really like this idea of Nagelsmann playing this attractive, free-flowing, attacking football, where at times it would just be 2 defenders and both wing-backs are bombing on. And as time has gone on, and obviously Nagelsmann said no, and looking into Pochettino, I think Pochettino actually might have been the better option from the off, for the fact of his own Premier League experience, but also what's happened at PSG too. I don't mind the idea that he's gone to PSG and realised actually when you're dealing with the likes of someone like Lionel Messi and Neymar and Mbappe, it doesn't quite work out the same. Luckily at the moment with Chelsea, there isn't a dressing room full of these huge egos of the level of Neymar and Mbappe and Messi. I mean, who knows in the summer? There are rumours that Neymar might end up at Stamford Bridge. So we'll see there. But hopefully with Pochettino in charge, he'll be able to kind of have his say on things.
Depends if he's left alone, isn't it? Like, let's see how much interfering gets done by the sticky fingers of the ownership.
And let's see how many of the 16 players he signed this season he actually wants.
Well, this is it now. I think a big part of it. One thing I'm happy about is that it's not been dragged on in the summer. It's done now. And he can kind of get in the 2nd June.
Fresh start.
He will have, I assume he'll have chats this week with Frank Lampard and so on and so forth and the staff and figure out which players are here to stay and which players does he want to lose and go from that. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, what you don't want to be is in the situation that Spurs are right now where they have no idea what manager they're after. They have no idea what summer plans they want to go for either because they don't have the manager in charge to go and do
they don't
them.
have the sporting director.
And they don't have a sporting director. Like,
Zach
where
Conte
Chelsea are right now is not too bad.
6 games ago now, and they've not even started the interview process.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw reports on the weekend, didn't we, that Nagelsmann will not be invited for an interview. What?
Sounds like he said no that in some way, shape or form.
I mean,
I think they were jumping the gun that he wouldn't want it, and they couldn't deal with another embarrassing PR move. But yeah, Spurs are in a bit of a mess. But if their top target is Arne Slot, which it's been reported a few weeks, I don't really know who the top target is, but he's just won the league with Feyenoord at the weekend. I think that's an exciting manager that sees probably Spurs as the right level for him at the moment. Like, I just don't think they're going to get a Nagelsmann right now. Spurs need to focus on getting into the top 6 next year. Potentially when losing Harry Kane. You guys, I've seen people talking about a title charge next year with Chelsea. Just get into the top 4. Just get into the top 4. After the worst season that you've ever had, just get into the top 4. Especially when you've got 12, 13 players to get rid of.
In a market
where no one has
how
any
many points do you want? Are you at 40? Are you on 40?
39 maybe?
So you're going to need 60-point swing to beat City.
What I will say though,
what I
will say will be good though for Poch is that he has a season of just focusing domestically. Doesn't have to worry about any European football.
Yeah, but that's easier said than done when you've got a 40-man squad, mate.
Sure, but I think the squad will have to get cut in some way, shape or form. Like he mentioned previously about his Spurs team, he wants 25 players, essentially. And so we're going to see a good 15 players leave or go out on loan or get cut. Yeah. And there'll be some big names. There really will be. It won't shock me. We were speaking again just before the camera, like Hakim Ziyech will be on his way. Pulisic will be on his way. You wonder whether Chelsea will try and get their money from the likes of Trevor Chalobah and players like that. It's going to be a lot of cuts.
The one worry, the biggest worry, not the one worry I have with Chelsea, there's a lot of worries, but the biggest worry I have, I think, is you're potentially losing 2 of your better players in Mason Mount and Mateo Kovacic. And there was talk last week that you might even countenance letting Thiago Silva go if he wants to go back to Brazil, which I thought was a bizarre report or a bizarre rumour.
He just signed a new contract as well. I thought that was quite odd. And then he came out after the game as well and was very much like giving his love. Yeah, so I don't know. To give him a new contract then leave
seemed bizarre. But yeah, there's so much change going on there. Yeah. I think Poch is. I totally agree with you. I think Poch is probably the right appointment. But whether it will work out given the circumstances, I think it's very difficult for any manager to succeed at Chelsea at the moment.
But do you not think like next season, honestly, if you were like Chelsea finish 5th and have a good season of developing players, getting Mudryk in the side, Madueke more minutes, Enzo finding a DM that's not next to him, a striker that gets 15 goals or so, I'm bite your hand off.
It's mad. I'd
bite your hand off.
Done, isn't it? After 600 million spent. Okay, we're going to change it up this week. Last week we did things to look forward to. Instead, this week we're going to be doing Team of the Week.
Oh, yes.
Kind of sort of put together our joint team. It's probably not perfect, so we only did it in like 5 minutes, didn't we? But we're interested to hear your teams of the week as well in the comments below. So let us know who's been in your 11 and who should be in your 11. We've gone for, I'll read it out. Feel free to just shout out as well when you want to talk about a player. Jason Steele in net.
Already mentioned him. Great game yesterday.
Yeah, the pass distribution
was a little touch and go at points, but he got away with all his passes. Was magnificent.
Moises Caicedo as well, obviously at right back because he's operating at right back for Brighton at the moment. Just the ability to play as a hybrid inverted right back when you're like already one of the best young defensive midfielders on the planet is insanity. Ben Mee.
Yeah, had a really good game yesterday. Yeah. Really good game. Got a flicked header, which was then headed in for the second goal. West Ham, by the way, yesterday. I know they're pretty much safe now. They were shocking.
Yeah, they already got the towels on, don't they?
Yeah.
They already got the towels on. They're on
Rice,
the pitch,
and Rice and Bowen were on the bench, etc.
They're fine, mate. They are absolutely fine.
They've obviously got the European game
on
as
Thursday.
well. Yeah,
obviously, Levi Colwill.
Again.
I mean, look,
do you want him starting next year?
Do I want him starting next year?
We can't start with Badiashile, can he? So
you can have 2 left-footed.
You can't have 2 left-footed centre-backs.
Tell
me one team in world football that operates with 2 left-footed centre-backs.
Arsenal at the moment.
And how's that gone? How has that
Second
gone?
in the league. Yeah, look, I think it'll be interesting. I don't know. I honestly don't know. He's been incredible. I think Badiashil's been one of our best players this season. So I think it's going to be up to Pochettino.
Send him back to Brighton, man.
There'll
Just let him keep developing. Another year on loan.
You know, Poch might want to play 3 at the back. Who knows? We'll see.
We've also got a Kanji in there, left back.
What a player!
Obviously,
what a player! I think people didn't really take much notice of him when he joined last summer. He'd had a few injury issues at Dortmund. They were really mistake-ridden over the last few years. But Manuel Akanji, what a season. Playing in a variety of positions. I think he's played all across the back line. Really helps with the physicality of that team as well. Like Rodri, Akanji, Diaz. Like, they are big units. They kind of bully teams and like outpass them as well. Yeah. They're just unbelievable.
Could have picked Moreno as well, who has been one of the signings of the season, by the way, for Villa. Obviously flying.
A lot of people questioned it as well, you know, because they had Digne, and obviously they've only brought him in recently, and they were very much questioning
his flying
position.
under Unai Emery, taking the 3rd most points of any team since he's taken charge of the club. Massive result against Tottenham.
Dominated them.
Yeah, totally dominated them. Played that super high line, which was so effective. And I saw people saying as well, like, I think it was on Match of the Day, where people were like, like bemoaning at Villa for playing this high line. It's so dangerous. Son's nearly getting in behind. Yeah. The best teams in the league play super high lines. Look at Liverpool's line, Man City's line. It's very, very high. It is risky.
And they're doing it effectively.
It worked. They beat another sort of European contender.
If it bites them in the bum a couple of times, okay, then maybe we can sit here and criticise it. But right now, when it's working,
they nailed the defensive structure. The line was perfect when Son was offside, so he was a potential in there. Obviously, got Gundogan. We've already spoken about him, and Eberechi Eze. Already spoken about him. Bruno as well.
I didn't watch the Manchester United.
Yeah, you guys had a pretty good performance. I only saw it on Match of the Day, but
I mean, is very dominant, but Wolves are pretty pants on the road. They have been for quite some time, and also they are firmly on the beach. Wolves, like they're sun cream on already.
I thought Anthony was good as well. You know, Anthony was good as well. Like he got a lot of people were very annoyed when we gave me, Dougie, and Pat gave him our flop of the season.
The thing is, Bruno just like is at the stage now where Bruno at this stage now where people are just like, I don't know, people, because he's obviously a bit of like a not diver, but he's a theatrical.
People don't like him personally.
Yeah, so now they really have
they refuse to admit his strength.
Exactly, it's gone the opposite way now totally. But he's just stunningly good. Callum Wilson.
Not Callum Wilson. I've actually put him down. Harry Wilson.
Over Callum Wilson.
Yeah, Callum Wilson scored 2 penalties. Like
Callum
very good,
Callum
very
Wilson,
good tucked away.
Newcastle weren't great against Leeds
but
either.
Fulham, I thought, were impressive, and Harry
Against
Wilson
Southampton
in particular, because he had an interesting season this year. Obviously, when he came in, was injured, was out of the side, finally got kind of back into this team, and I think he's kind of he had a very good game.
So that's his actual lab recommendation. Harry
Just
Wilson
on Callum Wilson, and Leeds in particular. I saw a lot of people saying that's a great point for Leeds. Leeds gave away 2 of the worst penalties of the season. But I actually thought the Vobra one was worse. Just comes and cleans them out completely, completely missing the ball. Firpo falls over in the build-up to that as well.
Mate, Firpo for the handball, that is a criminal.
He does 2 or 3 games every 2 or 3 things every game, and I'm like, Firpo, what a player. Then there's just so many moments in every game that I'm just like, how have you even got to professional football? He's chaotic, to say the least.
I don't know what on earth was going on with Firpo across that. He should have been sent off 3 times.
Yeah, it was mad.
It was honestly
He was a one-man wrecking ball.
And Leeds, just the master their own downfall, shipped 2 penalties.
Bamford again.
Penalty.
We sat here last week criticising Bamford. I think again this year he wasn't
biggest underperformance of XG this season.
Not great. And Burmo against West Ham. We've kind of already spoken a little bit about Brentford. West Ham. But it looks
there
like
might be
Ivan
a
Toney's
slight
out for
chance
the season.
He gets a move in the summer.
Burmo. Yeah. Not if Ivan Toney does.
Doesn't time him go.
And then Taiwo against you.
Yeah, he was very good. I mean, if you've not seen the highlights, Mendy kind of has a mare for the first one, that's for sure. But he was giving the defenders a really tough time. Got his goal in the end. Yeah. He was overall really good. Like I think in general, been a very good signing for Forest this season.
Scored a great goal the previous weekend as well. I think he's been one of their better ones as well.
I think
it probably goes Morgan Gibbs-White, and then he's in that sort of bracket below.
Danilo,
Felipe.
They got their January business.
Renan Lodi's been all right. Keylor Navas.
They actually smashed their January business. You think of Felipe and Keylor Navas. Both been really good signings. Yeah. Danilo, really good signing. They've had a few myths in there as well. A few, yeah. 16. But
when you sign the amount of players they were, you'd hope a couple of them do well.
I think their next season for us will be a lot better. Because Steve Pupil will know who he wants to keep.
Okay, yeah.
And it will be a much more solid.
I wonder how many players they sign.
Do you think they'll have another busy window?
I think they'll have a very busy window. I think more so in terms of sales and releases.
I wonder if anyone goes to Gibbs-White. I honestly wonder if anyone tries and
he's such a good technical
footballer. They'd get
footballer.
run up.
It's interesting though. I don't know whether it's just Marinakis' style, because Olympiacos had a high turnover of players every summer, lots of signings coming in. Maybe it's just how he likes to operate.
Although they have, I don't know if they've replaced the footballing recruitment.
The sporting director, who was only there for 6 months or so.
But it's be interesting to see. So that was our team of the week. Let us know yours in the comments below. That's the end of Monday vibes, and he said Sunday vibes. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit the like button, hit subscribe, comment, blah blah blah. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you later.